that
Yes.
delta
Yes.
revenue
The
over
difference
expenses.
between revenue and expenses, we're trying to gradually build that so we have the capital to do what we need to do in the future. And in projecting, as I said a minute ago, Pamela, but trying to project what our purchase power cost will be in the future, I use that hedge plan report that they show what our expenses, what they expect our costs to be on an average per kilowatt hour. And we are always, every time this hedge plan comes out, we are always not in compliance, quote unquote, because of that single factor that we don't know what our fuel costs are going to be from those facilities that we. It's not like a lot of the other utilities, everything is on a purchase power agreement, so we know what the cost is going to be for the next 20 years, and so they're more in line with their hedge plan because they know those costs. We can't be because we don't know what the cost of fuel are going to be for our two biggest sources of supply. But they're not worried about it at MPPA, and we're not concerned about it because whatever those coal costs come in at, they're always within the margin, plus or minus 5% of the hedge.
And I don't have it with me, but when I went to that conference last year, they were talking about, I don't remember what the percentage was. You know, there's that recommended percentage in terms of what we've had set aside for capital. How are we doing in keeping pace with that, with your projections?
We're ahead of that.
Okay.
They usually request or suggest that you have 3 months operating capital, and our $1.8 million, $1.7 million number is well within that.
Yeah, they suggest that. I thought there was another number. I'll have to go back. I have all those books at home still from last summer, but I thought there was another number that they recommended. I don't remember what it was, so I'll look it up.
Okay. So the other, I don't know who taught your session, but Mark Beauchamp is a financial advisor, utility financial advisor, and he has a formula that develops what your cash balance should be, and we use that in this model.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yes, they went over that formula with us in one of the sessions that we talked about, because that was one of the main problems with
10% of what your
utilities.
total net value is, and 5% of your capital expenses, and that formula is in this model.
Okay. Okay.
So do we have the projection from 5 years ago? That what were we projecting from 2009 to 15? That we can kind of
we can do that.
Just kind of interesting to see what we were expecting then, what actually happened, and just to kind of know what we might expect that we don't expect for that, so to speak, for the next 5-10 years.
Good. I think I always say the only thing I can tell you for sure that I know is that you'll be wrong.
Yep. Well, that's why you put lots of detail on it, right?
Yeah.
And it will not be exactly $8 million. Could be off by $1 or $2.
So at this point, again, this is really just talking through the budget process, showing you what I think the numbers will be, and then over the next 30 days, Steve and I will develop an operating budget to present to you in March. And then at the March meeting, assuming that everything looks copacetic from your perspective, then you approve it as a draft, and then we can send that draft budget to the city. They use that then in their budgeting process, which ends in a draft in May. By the time they present their draft budget in May, we'll have had 2 more months of data to update our draft, and before their June meeting, we will present them with our final option. So again, this is just a starting point. It'll evolve over the next 3 months until we get to the final budget in May that will present to the city.
you might not know the answer to this, but I'm curious when we look at the pilot, I mean, I'm just looking at these numbers that that money goes into the city budget.
Yes.
Do we have any idea what percentage? I don't know what the general
4.5%.
budget is.
Oh, it's 4.5% of our budget.
Okay,
Our
do we know what it is of the
What percentage it is of the city budget?
of the city budget? I'm just curious.
No idea.
Oh, okay.
I could guess, but I'd be wrong. It would only be a guess.
Okay.
What city's total revenue is like around 3 million, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
226.
Two something, yeah, it's like
Okay.
upper twos, I think.
Okay.
Right, so this is maybe 10%?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wait, this is,
Well, 300, yeah.
So what are we at now? If it's 3 million and we're at 300,000?
2.6, yeah, we're at 300,000.
Okay, yeah.
306, yeah.
10, 12%?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I just was a little bit curious because I've heard comments about, that whole pilot and not giving enough money or this and that. But it's a significant portion of the city budget.
That's a significant portion of our revenue.
Okay.
Which is supposed to be visited every 5 years.
And we are due
Well,
for another review.
from what I learned last year, though, at that conference, we're pretty much in line with standards in terms
We are.
of our,
Yeah.
yeah.
There are some utilities, I don't know what the number is because I haven't polled 2,000 utilities. There are utilities, there are pilot programs where there are some parameters other than just a percentage.
Right.
And I can see some validity to those parameters. For example, one parameter is that I think has merit is that the utility would pay up to a certain percent, whatever the right number is, whether it's 4 or 6 or 5 or 3.5, whatever that number is, would pay that amount in pilot as long as it didn't exceed 50% of the total net income for that year. Because it's very hard. We had years in the past where all of our operating revenue that we had to put into the system went to pay the pilot. And so it was really a hardship on the utility to do that. And that's not the intent, is of course to be a hardship. I mean, the last thing the city wants to do is to run.
Well, we can't afford for the infrastructure not to be kept up.
Correct, but to run the utility into the ground and then not have a good utility. So it works to the benefit of everybody if the utility stays solvent and maintains a big enough reserve to handle the upgrades on the system. So I'm in favor of some type of a pilot process or pilot system that ensures that the city gets some value, but that also ensures that the utility gets enough to maintain the capital expenses that it needs to make in order to keep the system in good shape. So somehow, I think that's what we would be working towards in the next review.
And when are we due for review again?
I think we're reviewing now. The review is due this year, 2015. I think the last time was 2010, and in the past, we said that we'll just leave everything as it is. We have.
So who does that review? Like, how does that happen?
We have I think it's set up that we have a designated board member, myself, city manager, and a designated council member, the mayor. How it's set up on the city side. Those are where the initial discussions will be. And then the proposal is taken back to the file.
So do we have that on the schedule yet? 'Cause I mean,
No, it's not.
times when you go by, like, way faster than any of us imagine. I just kind of feel like that needs to be on the radar if that has to get done this year. Because if not, I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time to work through that process. So I kind of feel like we need to get that on the radar. And we need to educate ourselves. I don't know, you two probably know it all because you've been around forever, but we need to educate ourselves as a board, I think, to better understand what the standards are nationally and how all that works, so that as we're talking through that, we're informed.
Okay. I will get that on one of the next agendas to discuss.
Anyway, sorry, I just was curious. I mean, I'm looking at that number as we go across, and I'm thinking, I just wonder what percentage of the city budget that is, because I know that's an issue, so, okay.
Anything else on the budget? Then we will proceed.
So glad it's you doing it and not me. I mean, that's a lot to process. Okay.
All right, and then the next item was the hedge plan policy, and we've gone late enough tonight that I don't think we'll spend much time on that. But it basically shows, I guess maybe the best graph to look at is on page, I believe it's page 23. Where it shows what our exposure is and what percent we are hedged. And so you can see in the short term that we're under hedged, so to speak. The red line is under the gray. But as we go out further, we will be in the hedge plan based on what we expect costs to be at that point in time. So the short term, we don't know exactly what those are going to be for fiscal year 15, 16, and 17. So we have estimates for beyond. If you go back one page, to page 21, the graph, this shows where they expect us to be based on their projections, and you can see that our expected line is well within the range of what our hedge plan should look like. The other's all good information, and we can spend the whole night talking about that as well. But if you want to look at it at your leisure and have questions, we can bring it back next month. We can talk about it then. It really is a good report that MPG provides us about what our load is, what the projections are. They look at the market, they look at what the cost of fuel is going to be, and they do a really good job of trying to help us be in a good position moving forward. We are probably the smallest utility in the group with the largest amount of owned assets. So that puts us kind of in a unique situation. And we are generally speaking, an anomaly for them, but it's a good thing from their standpoint. They don't worry much about us because we do have so many assets. And we are constantly looking at that and doing things like combustion turbines and the biodigester and being proactive. They don't have to, so to speak, chase after us to get us to do things to be proactive.
Purchasing power in Ohio.
Right.
Granger.
I think that's enough for me tonight. All right, that brings us to the scheduled meetings. You have that in your packet. Next meeting is March 12th.
And tentatively, I will be out of town for that meeting unless something changes.
Okay. You got that, Kristen? Again?
Kind of.
Complaint registered, no new complaints. Congratulations to that. Brings us to board comment. Terry, we'll start with you.
I just wanted to address Peggy's letter about the smart meters. And whether in her letter, whether she's indicating that not to move forward, not to drop it altogether. I'm not quite sure on a couple of it, but I believe that at Lowell Light and Power that we should move forward with the smart meters in design, in working out a policy, looking at citizens that might be affected, that could possibly be affected, and how they would be exempt. And so obviously if you've we've removed that from our, had to make a budget adjustment in our capital improvements, so that would not be until, we would not be implementing it this year, this fiscal year, which ends June 30th, but it could possibly next year. But I believe that we need to continue to investigate and find out more about it, and because some of the things, it certainly might affect a few of our customers, but I do believe that what I've read, that it is moving us forward. So again, I think we will, as a board and as a company, look at all the options and look at smart meters and how we should implement, and who might be exempt, and if there's a cost. But just going through that whole process, I believe that we should continue to move forward. That doesn't mean that that you're gonna have a smart meter tomorrow, but I think we should move forward with developing the smart meter. That's pretty much the only thing I can think of right now.
All right. Tina?
What Perry said, I concur. Definitely moving forward with smart meters. When it was first brought up, I was very excited that we were actually moving forward with this development. Lowell continues to be a small town that has a lot of great ideas, and it's a great badge to take to the table, so to say, when I run into people and I tell them where I'm at and what we're doing. Definitely the sites that she had outlined here, I'm going to look them up and look them over and see what that is all about. Of course, we don't want anybody getting sick or what have you. What I've read, I haven't seen a lot of it. It did trigger a couple times, and I thought, well, let me look at it even further. So I'd like to do that. Also, the biodigester test. Great job. That is wonderful. Thank you for being on board, gentlemen. And again, it's another badge I carry with me on this great town and what we're doing here. So huge kudos, guys. Thank you. And to your staff. Like that's it.
All right. Andrew?
I just wanted to thank Roger and Peggy for the notes. It's good to get feedback from folks, and good and bad. That's why we're here. We're here to listen. I just want to say it's kind of nice that here now. I feel like, woohoo, we have a contract, and woohoo, we've got a power adjuster that works. And it's amazing how long those things have been going on, and it's kind of nice to have milestones of those two things that are in the rearview mirror now. So that's been nice. I guess that's one thing I would have mentioned just to the board in general is one thing I thought about on the city council. We used to have, I don't know if you're planning to do it again, but like a mayor exchange with another community, where the council from that community and the council from ours, we kind of visit each other and just kind of see how they do business. I'm just wondering if you think there'd be any value in doing that utility exchange. Find some utility that's a small municipal one around Michigan somewhere and go see how they do business, and come see what we do here, just to get some perspective. So it's just something I wanted to get you guys to think about and see if that's something you think would be valuable to us, if we should focus on other things. And I know at least from the city council ones that I was part of, it was really valuable. It was just amazing to see how different another city council could be. I remember like when Belding came to visit us, and oh my gosh, you guys are always 5-0 voting. We can't have any vote that's not 3-2. So that was them at the time, and I was thinking, oh, I guess that is kind of a luxury that we've got the council that works well together. And but there's just so many things that are different. It's really worthwhile just to, I think, to see that exposure, or have that exposure. And then the last thing, because I love to talk about my kids and grandfather and all that. I just want to mention that it's probably a couple months ago, but Henry and I walked into Ace Hardware, and first thing Henry said is, hey, look, they have different lights. had noticed that they had LEDs installed, you know, and he thought it was kind of cool because they're shinier and, you know, so all your efforts, you know, and Sharon's efforts to, you know, get these lights and things installed at the businesses and homes have been noticed by everybody, even 3-year-olds. That's cool.
Thank you.
Cool.
Kendall?
I think it's very cool that your son noticed the light. So, what's next, Greg? I mean, we've had a lot of great accomplishments, and just kudos to everybody. I loved the letter from Roger. I had the pleasure of working with Sharon for a couple of years when I was at Fromm, and she was so instrumental in getting that meat program going, and just has done so much for the consumers at Fromm, and it's wonderful to work with on all fronts. So just kudos to your staff and your leadership and what they're doing in the community. I think it's great. I want to echo what you guys said about the smart meters. I think there was some information last year when we were at the conference in Colorado, and from the stuff I saw there, they're really good, they're beneficial, they're very, very minimal risk, and I think it's important, and I think we talked about this before, that it's important to make sure we allow our consumer to opt out if they have a health concern, and that, you know, we have a process for that in place. And I think that, you know, we need to assure Peggy that as we move forward with this, here's all the reasons why it's good and all the reasons why it's healthy. And I think no matter what we do, you're always going to find some study that refutes what the vast majority of the studies say. You know, the majority of the data out there says these are safe. You're always going to find some study that's going to say they're not. So I think that we just have to be mindful of weighing those options and offering that potential opt-out if it is a health concern. So, but, yeah. How do you guys are doing here? We're doing good stuff.
Mr. Mayor?
Hello. You've been reading in the paper, and I think some of you are aware of the issues going on with the City Council, and we hope to address that at our next workshop on February 23rd. While the main issue at that workshop will be the budget and working through some of the preliminaries with that for the council, we will also take up adding and what's appropriate to have on agendas. And so we're having that discussion, and as you read in the paper, my feelings are that agenda items are for action items and not just discussions. That discussions take place either at board or committee level and or during workshops. And so that's where we're at with that. There was also a rather heated but involved coffee with council last Saturday, and I'd like to thank Chairman Gregg for lending his support, and Andrew, the information that you both provided, I think helped in that conversation. So thank you for participating that day and taking time out on a Saturday morning to come be helpful.
Henry enjoyed it too, probably. Really? He said he liked it.
Okay.
Future council member in the group.
I'm sure he learned at least one new word. Thank you for the holiday party. Great participation with the city as well as the Light and Power, and it's always fun. And Barry, thanks for doing that white elephant exchange. Every year it's
Fun.
Yes, an adventure. Who knows what's coming out of these packages? And let's see. Add to your schedule of meetings. We're at least I'm anticipating a city council meeting on March 2nd.
Oh, okay. Missed that, huh?
I think we're still going to have one.
Yeah.
Maybe. Depends if we could have an agenda. DPW director is being selected. Sharon, the mayor pro tem, and I met with the final two candidates a couple of evenings ago, and Mark will be making an offer to one of them, each of these two people. We have a Tom and a Charlie. Either of them would do a wonderful job, so I think we've got two solid candidates, as Dan Discard looks at retiring in May. So, going to wish Dan well, but we hope to have somebody on board about a month ahead of time so they can work with Dan. And, Dan, it's not that far away. We know where he lives. And that pretty much sums it up. So, things are busy.
Great. As Andrew said, it's nice to have the union negotiations behind us. That was a tough, ugly 3 years, but I think we did the right things for our ratepayers by not just giving in and giving everything up. I think there were a middle ground that we met at, and it was good for both sides. Unfortunately, it was tough on the community in the interim, but we're past that now and we can move forward. Congratulations to the staff on the biodigester. There are some really exciting things that have been talked about and worked on and come to fruition, and good job on the part of the staff here. Thank you for your efforts on it. And, you know, Greg, you really helped us think outside the box as a board and bring things to us, and we discuss them. It really has put Lowell Light Power in the community in a great spot. But your leadership is great, and you have a great staff that works with you and communicate well with them and inspire them. It's a great thing here. Thank you. That's all I have.
I would move to adjourn. It sure is nice not having to go to closed session.
I would support that motion.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you all.
Can you turn that off?
Yep.
I don't know if it's the other thing.
Okay.
Send it to Sharon or